before I took the program, I was pretty much had blood in my stool, going to the bathroom several times a day, diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, the whole thing. You know, when I had finally bought the program, it had only took about a week until my
Wow.
symptoms had pretty much completely cleared up. And you know, I've worked the program now for a year, and anytime I stray off it, it would get a little bit worse, but it's pretty much been like a
Mm-hmm.
full cure, which has been insane just from taking the program and using the knowledge and the stuff that you put in there, which is, it's just crazy.
Awesome, Joe. Cool, guys. Yeah, this is Joe. He's we're doing like a testimonial video of, you know, our program, the Rapid Gut Healing Program. And yeah, Joe's going to tell us his story. So what was your diagnosis, Joe?
So, I mean, if I go back, like it's crazy to share this personal stuff, but I know it's going to help people. So I'm happy to do it. That's why I'm here. But, you know, I had blood in my stool, which, you know, it's very scary to see that. I had it every single day, you know, times I was going several times a day and whatnot. And I didn't know what it was. And I read a bunch of stuff. I got like super anxious. It was all like hypochondriac about it. Eventually I had to like do what I had to do to get insurance just so that I can get a colonoscopy, because like they cost $10,000 without insurance.
Yeah.
So I got the colonoscopy, and then they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis. So they went in and did the whole thing and said I had that. And then, you know, me wanting to be able to heal things naturally and stuff, which is why I gravitated towards your work, was, you know, I asked, okay, what can I do to fix this? Is there something lifestyle? Is there some diet? Is there whatever I can do? And the doctor said, which you've heard a million times, right? You cannot fix this with diet. It has nothing to do with lifestyle. Here is this medication, and you're going to have to take this for the rest of your life. And I was like, I was devastated, man. I'm like, I don't want to be some cripple. I got to take pills for the, you know, no offense to anyone who has to, but I was like, I don't want to have to take pills for the rest of my life. You know, this doesn't seem natural. And then I kept saying to the doctor and to myself, what did they do back in the day when they got this, before they had the pills, right? Like, what is the natural cure for this thing? But no one had an answer. I went to several doctors. I went to several gastro and spent a lot of money. And they all said the same thing. Diet won't change it. You got to take these for the rest of your life. And I was just like, and it was crazy. Now, the real crazy thing is that I started taking, I mean, I had to do suppositories in the beginning, and then I started taking pills, which at one point I was taking, I think it was 8 pills a day that I had to take from this one medication, because it was a little cheaper than the other one, because eventually I didn't have insurance again, but it was costing me a few $100s every single month. And I had to take, I think, 8 pills every single day, which I got so sick of taking. And the crazy part is that they did improve the symptoms for a little bit, because I believe they're like an anti-inflammatory that's goes directly to the area. But after several months, they actually stopped working, and the symptoms came back. And I was like, man, here I am spending money on these pills, and they're still not working, which I got furious. And that's when I started really diving deep into YouTube and stuff like that, and found your channel. And I was like, man, I gotta give this a shot, because I can't take these pills. They're not even working anymore, you know?
Yeah, I hear that with a lot of people. It's like the body goes through its nutritional reserves, you know, on those pills. I've seen it with, you know, I did pills for about a year and didn't see much results. And then I did Remicade for about a year, and, you know, thinking that would fix everything. And I'm telling you, like, those Remicade rooms are scary. Like, there are some, it's like, it's a matter of time before the rug gets pulled out. And like, I've seen, like, people would fall asleep in the chairs. Like, people looked like skeletons in those chairs. And then you'd have like some fat nurse with like, who's smoking a cigarette and can like barely find your vein. It's like, you know, at some point you're like, why am I taking health advice from these people?
Yeah.
And so it looks like so it sounds like you didn't do any crazy Remicade or anything like that. You just did like the standard. Did you ever go on like steroids, or it sounded like you were on like Pentasa or something?
Yeah, I did like Canasa and some other drug, which I even forgot the long name for it. So like I would do suppositories, and then I tried to look up diet advice. I tried a bunch of different diets. And then I took these pills and all that. And like, that's the funniest moment that I want to share with you, because the moment where I decided to buy your program, right, was like, here I am spending hundreds of dollars every month on this stuff. And your program was just a one-time fee of a few $100s or whatever it was. And I was like, what are you doing? Stop being an idiot. I'm like, buy the fucking program. Like, you'll learn something bare minimum. And I was like, and if it works, then you don't have to fucking take these, excuse my language. You don't have to take these pills.
Good.
You don't have to take these pills anymore. And you're spending tons of money on these stupid ass pills. Why wouldn't you spend money on this program? And like, I was like, is this going to work? Whatever, is this information I can get somewhere else? But the stuff that you taught in the program, like, I was like, okay, I'm going to get the program, and you address this in your program. And okay, he's just going to put out a protocol. And I was like, well, why am I going to pay money just for a protocol? But the program was so much more than a protocol. It's not even that. I went through every one of your videos, and the knowledge that you gave allowed me to understand how digestion works, how my stomach works, what I can eat and what I can't eat, and why it's bothering my stomach. So now I could be out certain places. I can be other people's houses. When I go grocery shopping, I know what to buy and what not to buy, because I know how it affects me because of the knowledge that you gave in the program. It was like, it was crazy, man. Like I'm going through that, and I'm like, man, how could somebody be a doctor and be making all this money and be a gastroenterologist, and they don't know one thing from your program? Like, the stuff from your program is like the things you absolutely have to know to understand your stomach and digestion, but like, they don't know any of that. I'm like, what did they teach them in school for 8 years? Like,
I'm curious.
It blows my
I don't
mind.
know. And it's quite interesting. Over here in Ukraine, they have a little bit more. They go to the holistic side, but it's still, they're not even scratching the surface. It's it doesn't make sense. Like, like, seriously, guys, I'm not like the brightest crayon in the box. Like, I was so lazy, like, growing up. Like, I couldn't. My name's Mike, but my real name is Michael, and I was so lazy. I didn't know how to spell Michael until like high school, until like one of the teachers forced me to. Like, I think it comes from my computer science background, where, if you miss like one period or colon or character, like, your whole program breaks. So like, I'm always trying to account for all the variables in our health, and there's lots of them. So I'm glad that you were able to like take the information, because I see a lot of people, they'll just like try to follow our information blindly, and that doesn't quite work, because there's like a lot of nuance, and it's really common sense. And when you look outside, like, there's like a little bird, that bird doesn't have digestive issues, and their brain's this big. They can't talk, they can't read. Like, if that bird can figure it out, you can figure it out. Like, it's all, and you see it in our culture, especially over in Europe. Still, you'll see it like, oh, why did grandma do this, or why did grandma? She might not be able to tell you, like, why she cooked the beans for 8 hours instead of just like throwing them in the microwave. There's a reason why they were cooked for 8 hours. It's to break down the anti-nutrients. And modern science is trying to understand this stuff, but they're kind of like making it more confusing. Like beans, oh, they have anti-nutrients in it. It's like, yes and no. It's like, those anti-nutrients are protecting the nutrients. You got to deactivate them. And so, and I'm so excited when it clicks for someone, and they run with it. So what were some of like, you bought the program? What was your experience like? What were some of the foods that you ate? And like, did you go like straight to raw dairy? Like, what did you do?
It's a good question. And here's the funny part. This is something I really wanted to share too. Well, there's two things I want to share. The first thing I wanted to say is the cool thing about you is that, there's always somebody in a specific niche or whatever. There's a problem. There's always somebody who has gone above and beyond to really dive in and become an expert on it. You read the digestion books, you went back and studied ancient diets and all this stuff, and then you figured it out, and you found the formula right through doing all the research. So it's usually somebody like, you had the issue as well too, where you had Crohn's disease, and you're like, all right, I'm going to do what it takes to find an alternate thing. And you did all the grunt work, and every now and then you find someone who has done that, you know, they're usually hard to find, but once you find them, they had that figured out, you know. And I knew that once I found you, I was like, all right, this is the guy who has this, who is the digestion guy, you know, who figured the heal your gut guy, you know, you're the guy who did it. And I thought that was so cool, right? Because there's always like, well, in most fields, there's a problem. There's one person who really put the work in to figure it out. And that was you, which I was very fortunate to find you. The other thing I want to share too is funny about my diet was, you know, I have fitness certifications. I train people with fitness and stuff like that. And I was eating in ways that I thought were healthy. Right. And you mentioned this in your program too. Some of these things that are quote unquote healthy by society are actually not that great for you. You know, I was eating the lean, well done muscle meats.
Oh, what?
You know,
Okay.
I was eating the big shake every day and pounding greens. I remember one of the funniest things was like, I knew I needed to eat my greens. I need to eat my greens. And everyone says broccoli, broccoli, broccoli. So I would, you know, cook like almost a pound of broccoli a day and force it down because I just knew, oh, everyone says broccoli is healthy for you, but broccoli always tore my stomach apart. And even when my stomach was my worst, I used to bake the broccoli, which was even worse. So it gets even more like shrapnel. And I used to just force it down because everyone said it was good for you. And then my stomach would get worse. And I'm like, oh, here I'm eating paleo. I'm eating nuts. I'm eating raw veggies. You know, I would put psyllium husk and fiber in my shakes and chia seeds and whey protein powder. And I put all this stuff in that I thought was healthy, you know, and I was told was good for me, but it just kept messing my stomach up more. And it made me go nuts. Cause I'm like, here I am eating really healthy foods and my stomach is just in terrible shape. And that was just like, it was crazy that didn't help, you know? And then once I started going through your program, I realized it was just clear as day. Like the cool thing about your program is everything made sense. When you explained it in a certain way, you're like, you know, my one buddy went to a carnivore conference and he said like, you know, the stomach acidity level is 1 out of 10. So your stomach is meant to break down meats and fats and all this other stuff too.
That's like the acid in Aliens, guys. Like it could burn through metal. Like it's almost that acidic. Like it's really acidic.
We're meant to break that down, you know. And here I am trying to eat all alkaline veggies and all this other stuff too. But little did I know, like the meats and stuff I was eating was actually good. And I thought meats were bad, so I was actually starting to like maybe take them down a bit. Because everyone's like, oh, meats are hard to digest and this and that and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just like all this stuff started coming together. And I thought raw milk would be hard to find. I actually found a really good local source very easily. They drop it off like 15 minutes from me. I pick it up once every 2 weeks. I bought grains, kefir grains off Amazon. And to this day, I still ferment my own raw kefir at the house. I have a shake with that every single day.
Nice.
That was actually easier to do. It's super tasty. Like even the foods and the way I eat now isn't like, it's like, oh, it's not like a huge burden. I actually enjoy the foods that I eat. And super cool.
Yeah. You know, when I look at my diet, I mean, it's like literally the same things I was eating growing up, you know, it's like, but it's like a slightly healthier option and I might cook it a little differently because like broccoli is tough to digest.
Yeah.
But like if it's pressure cooked or boiled or steamed, you know, like if you like look at how they do it in Asian cultures, it becomes very soft and, you know, it actually might taste good if you like cook it in the right sauces and stuff like that. And, you know, and it just depends, you know, maybe your gut's ready for that, you know, when you're healed or, you know, when you're really weak, you gotta, like, I try to keep things as like simple as common sense as possible. And, you know, sometimes I'm guilty of overcomplicating things and, you know, it's coming back to avoiding injury and nourishing the body. Like, and I'm also starting to believe that like a lot of the disinfecting and reculturing stuff can be just fixed with pure. Yeah, it make healing as easy and fast as possible. So, but you were saying like, so like you were having like bloody diarrhea, and then you started doing our protocol for 1 week, 2 weeks. And
Yeah,
like,
like when I finally made the decision to buy it, which I had put off for a while, which looking back, I don't know
mhm,
why. Like I said, I don't know why. If you're watching this, you're putting off. Like it's just there's no point. Like the answer is there. This can only help you. Like just buy the thing. Like I don't know why I was even delaying it, but once I finally bought it, I was having a really bad week. It was like
mhm,
blood, mucus. I was going to the bathroom several times a day, and this is when I was still taking the medication, and I thought I was eating a little bit better, and I was like, man, I can't believe this. Like, this is nuts. And then I just said, fuck it. Like, I got to buy this thing. So I bought it and I started doing the protocol. And, I saw some pretty glaring things in my diet, like I was saying, that were really bothering my stomach a bunch. And I started cutting those out and
mhm,
switching with some other stuff. And I was even on the road. Actually, I wasn't even home while I was doing this. And I mean, honestly, like it was about a week I noticed that like I
mhm.
saw improvements with like I started going back down to going to the bathroom once a day, and it was stuff was formed better, and like it
Oh,
was
wow.
pretty much a week when it started working really well. As I started to work it more and more, eventually like all the symptoms went away, and then like I'm a year
Nice.
past from when I bought the program now, and
Mhm, mhm,
I mean, everything's normal. It's so funny. This is true that like I'll even go out to eat with some friends, and their stomach will be bothered more than mine when we go out to eat because I've done
yeah,
so much work, to get the
mhm,
probiotics in to protect my stomach and give it rest and all that other stuff too. Where that like I could even handle a bad meal now better than even my
mhm,
friends and other people can, which is just it's totally crazy. And look, my stomach did get a little bit worse a couple times, but it was always when I veered off of the stuff that I know. When I would go out and eat the standard American food and
mhm,
have the French fries and the ketchup and the
mhm,
bread and like the normal American stuff and the sugar and the processed junk. When I would
mhm,
eat that and like binge or whatever, then my stomach would regress a bit and obviously
mhm.
get worse. But then once I go back towards the principles and the stuff that you taught, I mean, it's just
Yeah, I
it,
remember that was an issue like I had before I figured things out. As you know, I'd follow like gaps and specific carbohydrate and carnivore, and like your symptoms just come back and you're like clueless, like you have no idea why. And but once you like understand these principles, it's like super obvious. Like specific carbohydrate diet, you'll feel great for like the first couple of weeks, and then they start adding like vegetables, like certain vegetables, and it doesn't talk about how they need to be prepared. And then they'll start recommending nuts and nut butters,
yeah.
and then you have like you're like, oh, is it the meat? You have like no idea. Like I it's like there's like very simple, like there's like a very simple hierarchy on what's hard to digest and what's easy to digest and what you need to do to a food to make it's so simple. Like it's
Yeah.
like 100 years ago, like when people couldn't read or write, like we're figuring, had this stuff down. Like we can figure this. It's so simple.
But the
It's really
doctors
simple.
don't know it. That's the funniest part, right?
Yeah, yeah, they don't.
These guys who make
So
all this money and go to school
um
all these years have no clue. They didn't do any of the research. I mean, it just blows my mind, man.
I don't know how like you can do surgery on like a colon and know what every little part is called and have all that knowledge and then just not even be curious, after like your thousandth patient of not getting any results, just not being curious. um I think you have to have a gut disease to be motivated to dig for those answers, to be honest. But I
No, it's
mean,
it's true. It's true.
yeah.
When someone has a certain pain or something to fix, they're going to go deep, and you did, and you dove
Mhm.
deep and you found out the answer. Where just someone in general wants to be a gastroenterologist for the hell of it, they're taught to prescribe this, do this surgery, and that's how they make money, and that just is what it is. It's the same exact thing as like, when you're depressed, they say, here's antidepressants. When you're anxious, here's Xanax. They don't talk to you about
Mhm.
meditation. They don't talk to you like
Mhm.
you go into a psychiatrist, say you're depressed. They don't say, okay, what does your social life look like? Or, what things make you happy? What things are you doing in your life that you enjoy? They never
Mhm.
ask those questions. They're just like, okay, here's a prescription, right? It's It's just,
Yeah.
everybody wants the supposed quick fix, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on something versus actually
Yeah.
healing the problem at its core, you know? And if you want the Band-Aid,
Yeah.
then spend thousands and thousands of dollars on this crappy medication that's going to stop working after a year, right? But if you want the actual cure and find out why this is happening to you, you know, then, which I did, which is why I got your program. And that's the type of person that I am. And that's probably what the people who are watching this are too. And that's what the program did for me.
Cool. So did you have any like aha moments where like your logic shifted, or wherein you were like, this makes sense? Like, you know, for me, that was when I stumbled upon like Weston A. Price's book. I was like, wow, this is like the type of evidence I need to see to like totally abandon modern medicine. What was it, something in the course that I said or in one of my YouTube videos? Like, what was something that kind of helped you change gears and switch directions?
There was several of them, you know. The first one, which was funny, was in one of your videos. You were like, how you had the argument with the doctor, and the doctor was like, you know, go see you in a year. We're gonna have to cut your colon out, right? There's nothing else that's gonna fix this, and we're gonna have to pretty much cut your stomach out of you, you know. And like, because I had a very similar experience with the doctors, where they're like, no, you know, diet, nothing's gonna help, you know, nothing's gonna fix this. You have to take this medication. And I was like, well, you went through the same thing, which like I knew there's got to be another way. And then when you started talking like Weston Price, traditional diets and things like that, I was like, wow, you know, they actually ate very different than I thought they did. You know, they ate
Yeah.
foods and they prepared them in a certain way. Like, you know, when you talk about how the one tribe had cheese and bread, and I was like, well, how can they eat cheese and bread? But it wasn't just bread. This was grains that they grew. This was sourdough bread that they fermented and broke down the anti-nutrients, right? This was raw dairy. You know, it was a whole different type of thing. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something to how this food is processed, how it's sourced, you know, and seeing that type of stuff, it was just like a huge aha moment. Even too, when you said in one of your videos, you were like, you know, I don't eat a ton of vegetables. And I was like, you know, everyone just says for health, you got to eat vegetables. You got to eat vegetables. You know, vegetables are, if you don't eat vegetables, you're going to die and have a heart attack from red meat and all this other stuff too. And then like, once I started cutting out the raw kale that I was shoving in my shakes,
Oh,
you know,
boy.
trying to, I remember when I tried to like bake Brussels sprouts, how terrible my stomach would feel.
Oh,
You know?
I
Like,
hate Brussels sprouts.
you know, and you talked about how like certain fruits, for example, right? They turn a certain color when they're ripe because they're meant to be eaten, right? Or like the leaves on a plant are actually not meant to be eaten, right? So there are certain things where like I've noticed that like a zucchini, where it's something that grows and has seeds in it, you know, that's something that once I boil it and break it down, that's something that I could digest a lot easier than something that's like leafy and cruciferous and is not meant by humans to eat, right? And like even talking about nuts and how nuts have anti-nutrients. And I still tell people to this day, whenever I talk about digestion, how like you're saying like cows have 4 stomachs, right? Just to digest grass, right? And how we have this one acidic stomach, which is mainly to break down meat. And like how birds have a specific chamber in their stomach to break down seeds and get the anti-nutrients off them. I mean, you went so in depth on this stuff where it's like, it was so visual and so clear that I understood why I had to avoid certain things and why the human body was meant to digest different things. So it just makes, with that knowledge, it just makes it much easier. You can literally say, okay, well, yeah, that's not good for me. That's going to bother my stomach and I can eat that. So it was just, yeah, it was super helpful. And some principles that I tell other people, and principles that, you know, I always suggest your program if anyone has any issues with your stomach, but like there are things that like I just don't know why no one ever talks about, you know, and no one ever should. It just made such perfect sense to me once I started going through the program, but this is information that was nowhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all, I find it very exciting stuff. Like I kind of feel like 3 books and doing detective work on how nature is really, you it's simple, and how to get the nutrients back into the soil. And, the primitives had this stuff built into their culture and into their religion. Like if you didn't do this stuff, it was like, voodoo was going to come down on your village. And that's, voodoo is coming down on our society. And it's simply because we're not getting nutrients. It's like simple, like not even algebra 1 stuff. Like this is some, like your 5-year-old's learning. It's like plus and minus stuff. Like just get the nutrients back into the soil, and you build like healthy food, and then you cook it correctly and you put it in your mouth. Like it's like literally that simple. And then like we're just healing ourselves. I think the big problem with our society today is like we're not even speaking the right language. Like we can't even use the word inflammation correctly. Doctors don't even know how to use their disease terms correctly. Like my doctor, when I slammed the phone on him, he was like, "I'm gonna cut out your colon." I'm like, all my inflammation's in my small intestine, buddy. Like, like you wouldn't even have to cut, my colon's fine. So like they're just totally clueless. Like they don't even know what word, like the words that's coming out of their mouth, like they aren't even using them the way that the doctors who discovered these diseases, like that there's simple Latin terms for this is where inflammation's here or inflammation's there.
Yeah, that was a huge one too. When you mentioned like inflammation, right? And that's a term that gets used all the time. And it's like, okay, you're inflamed because you have a pain somewhere or something. So you're going to take an anti-inflammatory, right? And you're like, well, you're being inflamed for a reason. You need to stop the reason for the inflammation rather than take the anti-inflammatory. Inflammation is actually good. It's bringing blood to the air and trying to heal something, right? So
like how weird would it be if you got like punched in the eye and then it didn't become inflamed?
It wouldn't heal.
Like, yeah, like what would happen? Like, yeah.
It has to, right? There's a reason for when it's a punch in the eye, it's easy. It's like, okay, you got hit, let it inflame and let it heal. And then we'll back off it in the meantime. Right. But like for the stomach, those drugs that they give you are anti-inflammatories. So they're just saying, okay, let's chill the body out and pull the blood away. But it's not stopping the reason why you're inflamed in the first place. And that was a huge light bulb for me. I was like, man, well, there's something I'm doing that's damaging my stomach. I have to fix what's damaging my stomach, because these anti-inflammatories are never going to fix it. They're just, like I said, they're just a Band-Aid, but they're never going to actually fix the actual problem, which that was another huge light bulb moment for me.
And it's really simple what's causing that inflammation. It's some sort of injury, which I think when you bought the course, I think I had like 5 things listed. Now I have like 20 different things listed.
You have,
like I've tried to become like very
so
specific. And then I don't know if I have this listed, but like if your body isn't properly nourished, like that for phosphorus, you get one of like it isn't stress to like have your gut hurt. If like a brick wall, if like the ingredients aren't mixed right in the motor, so a lot of it's just avoiding injury while it's healing, and then making sure it gets all the nutrients that it needs. It's I know it sounds like stupidly simple, and it really is. It's I show you guys what foods to eat, how to prepare them correctly, things to avoid, what foods to avoid, how to prepare them. I just want to do the fastest way and the easy way to heal the tastiest foods. Like you got South America, like people all over the place. Yeah. Any last words? Thanks so much for sharing your story.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like I said before, like if you're watching this and you're still watching to this point and you're going through all this stuff, like you're actually crazy to not, like if you're going to spend the money on doctors and medications, by now I probably had spent thousands of dollars on those guys. If you're going to spend that money on that, then why not spend it on something that's going to educate you and teach you how to do it? It will take a little bit of discipline, but you can get results right away. And at the end of the day, this isn't like, when people think about diet or protocols or this and that, they're like, oh, well, I have to go and do something and I have to be different. And this is going to be, I'm depriving myself and this and that. No, like the stuff that you teach is high quality food that's going to nourish you. I mean, I even have been able to stay and get into really good shape, even physically, since I started the diet, because all the food is so healthy and my body uses and assimilates it so much better. Right. So this is something that overall is going to help you in all areas. So like, it's just, I just wish I had found it earlier, honestly. So I just want to thank you personally, Mike. Like I told you before we got on the call, man, like what you do is so important and it's helped me so much. So I just want to thank you. And out of my own moral obligation, it's the least I can do is to come on here, share my story, and hopefully someone else will see this and use your program and benefit from it, man. So I thank you so much for what you do. I really appreciate you so much.
Cool. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, just a few more details on the program. It comes with a Facebook group where my coaches will answer all your questions. And then we do live Q&As twice a week where you can talk to me or one of my other coaches. And, you know, some ones like really good at, has gone to like South America and learned from like shamans how to use herbs. And it's like, knows all that stuff and has helped people with SIBO and histamine intolerance. So we're just a bunch of gut health nerds that want to help you get better fast. And, you know, if it doesn't work, it's on us, and, you know, we'll give you a refund, no questions asked. But we teach you common sense, and all the information that we share with you and all of our theories, they're backed by like evidence you cannot argue against, like Weston A. Price, and very simple lab studies that, you know, on bacteria and stuff like that, and looking at how digestion works in nature. You know, it's just common sense biology and cooking that we should have learned, you know, when we're in school or something like that. So yeah, thanks again, Joe.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
Cool. Bye, everybody.